You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
I am going to compare the Als quarterback situation to the Ontario provincial election, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And it is Travis Currah and Brazilian Ty, the 2 and Out CFL podcast. Holy crap, Ty. Have you ever celebrated anything as hard as Alex Ovechkin is celebrating the Stanley Cup?
I don't think anybody's ever celebrated that hard. I've gone
It
on
is impressive.
I've gone on a couple benders, but nothing like that.
No, it is absolutely impressive. I am starting to wonder what kind of shape he's going to be in come October.
Yeah, that's next year's Ovechkin's problem.
Now Ovechkin's problem is how much can he drink between now and training camp. Let's get right to the news because this is a loaded podcast.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the 2 and Out podcast.
So we'll go through the preseason games as quickly as we can. Ottawa beats Toronto 32-17. I don't think anything really surprising happened in that one. We go to Friday. Calgary smashes Saskatchewan 39-12. Of course, this game wasn't on TV, so we only have radio. We only have some fans that were there and reports from the media that were there as well. But the offensive line looked absolutely brutal. And this was supposed to be the game where we would know who was going to be the starting quarterback between Zach Collaros and Brandon Bridge. Watford, Daniels weren't going to see any time, but basically they had to take Bridge and Collaros out of there because they were getting absolutely pummeled. They were playing terribly, and Watford was the best of the three quarterbacks in this game. But my thing is, if you're going to be playing your starting quarterbacks or back or whatever, he should be in there with the number one unit. That's not exactly what happened here.
Yeah, no, I don't know how you're supposed to, especially for Collaros, to get chemistry with these guys, like with their O-line, like if they're not going to be the ones playing. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense at all. So he took a nasty hit. They got him out of there. Bridge didn't fare very well either. So that quarterback competition or whatever is probably going to be continuing into the season. If you're a betting man, who's going to be starting on Friday against Toronto?
Collaros.
Yeah, that's what I think what happens as well, but I think it's going to be another one of those tandem things from last year, and I just don't think that wins Grey Cups anymore.
No, it doesn't, and that they didn't make the Grey Cup last year. You had two teams that were in the Grey Cup that had starters that played 18 and 17 games. You need to pick a number one and go with it through thick and thin. If he gets hurt or he needs to come out of a game, that's fine, but you can't bounce back and forth all year.
As far as Calgary goes, Eric Rogers is now officially a Calgary Stampeder, and the cuts have happened, the transactions have happened as far as roster magic goes, with people going on suspended lists, retired lists, 6-game lists. Rogers is not on a 6-game list, so we'll see how fast the Stampeders can get him into a game. Hamilton beats Montreal 30-15. We all know that I'm Canada's biggest Drew Willie fan. He's officially been named starter, and actually, the team ran best when he was behind center. They got off to a 14-0 lead and then kind of fell apart. It is a preseason game, but since 2013, the Als have had, what do we have? 13 starting quarterbacks?
I think I got 12.
Okay, and you put together the list on who has been the best since 2013. You want to take us through this, Brazilian Ty?
Oh, well, if you're going to look at just your wins, then it's Crompton. I mean, they had a really terrible start that year, ended up with a 9-4 record as a starter. He got them in the playoffs that year. But if you're looking at I did a bunch of different things. I went completions per game because not everybody has the same amount of games. The completion percentage, pass yards by attempt, TDs by attempt, interceptions, wins, and their winning percentage. Kevin Glenn led the way in a lot of those categories.
Wow.
And
he only had a 4-8 record.
4-8 record. Durant was third highest.
And that's wild. Out of these quarterbacks, Darian Durant was the third best.
And if like I kind of did like a point system. So if you were first in a category, you got 12, second got 11, and so forth and so on. And Rakeem Cato was second, so I think there might be something wrong with my formula. But if you look past just wins, it's Kevin Glenn. Like he did a lot when he was there. And sure, he only started 12 games, but he led the way in a lot of those categories.
Let's look at the starting quarterbacks. I'm just going to list them real quickly here. Kevin Glenn, Rakeem Cato, Darian Durant, Jonathan Crompton, Vernon Adams. He was 3-0, so that's got to count for something. Josh Nicewander. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember this character.
No, and I can't find anything for his CFL stats, really.
Jeez. Then we've got Brandon Bridge, Tanner Marsh, Troy Smith, Drew Willie, Alex Brink, and Matt Schiltz. Those have been the Alouette quarterbacks since Anthony Calvillo. So in this game, Johnny Manziel goes 12 for 20 for 88 yards and a touchdown. I think the biggest story in the game is probably what happened with Enoch Mwamba chasing down Johnny Manziel as he was running out of bounds, and he took a little bit of a late shot. Now, he didn't really get much of him. He was able to knock him down. He did get flagged on the play, but as Johnny was trying to head back onto the field, Jamal Westerman cuts him off, bumps into him, tries to slap the ball out of his hand. Is Johnny going to have to be dealing with this stuff all year long, or what? It kind of seems like it. This is only preseason, man.
Yep, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. Everybody in the league knows, every player knows how cocky he was, and how big of an ego he has, and they're just putting him in his place. They're not going to let him be Johnny Football. They want to make sure that he knows that you're still a kid. We're going to push you around, and you're going to have to earn the respect. We're not just going to give it to you. Late hits and stuff out of bounds I don't really like, but I got no problem with what Westerman did.
And I feel the opposite. It just seems like Mwamba was just trying to get a piece of him. That's what linebackers do. And because at least Mwamba was in the game. Westerman was just standing there and then went out of his way to get under Manziel's skin.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I have zero problem trying to get under a guy's skin and putting him in his place. I think that's all. I think that's all they're trying to do, right?
We're going to see a lot more of that this season.
I think so. And as for you saying that Drew Willie looked good, I'm going to compare the Als quarterback situation to the Ontario provincial election, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh my God! I don't like to get political, but that's good.
Thank you. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so.
Oh my. So, cut down day was on Sunday. It was originally supposed to be Saturday night, and then they figured out, we actually have a game on Saturday. We should give these teams some extra time. So it was moved to Sunday, even though the Tiger Cats, I don't think they really cared about the deadline at all. We'll start with the Argos here. There's nothing real surprising here. Mark Trestman spoke highly of U of R quarterback Noah Picton, but he'll be heading back to school. It would have been nice to see Boom Williams make the team because his name is awesome, but Toronto, as we all know, is pretty jammed at running back. We go to the Montreal Alouettes. We're right back here comparing them to that Toronto election. So the kicker, Van Gilswyk, ends up getting released. Boris Beatty is still going to be their guy. But they accidentally released a list of cut players with Xavier Fulton on it.
Yep.
How does that happen?
It's cut and paste. Somebody obviously didn't check it over.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's got to go through a couple
kidding me?
people. But I mean, I've seen Xavier Fulton play football, and if he was actually cut, it wouldn't be that big of a surprise to me.
Yeah, but it's what they got, and
Exactly.
He's probably going to be their left tackle. But to accidentally release a list of that,
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
peak Montreal, and it's
yeah.
only preseason.
Yeah. No, it's only downhill. Actually, it might only get better from here. Depends on how you're going to look at it.
We go to Ottawa. Kicker Sergio Castillo, of course, 2-0. Big fans of Sergio. He's out of a job, as well as veteran defensive back Brandon Stewart. This is really interesting from Red Blacks camp, and I get why it happened, but heck, Crichton winner Ed Ilnicki ends up getting cut by the Red Blacks. And, of course, they've got William Powell. They've got Moses Madu. So he was not going to be playing running back, but this guy was the MVP of U Sports. He had 1,468 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns on 196 carries. That all happened in 8 games, 7.5 yards per carry. This kid is going to get a shot somewhere else in the Canadian Football League.
Those are video game numbers.
That's
ridiculous.
180-some yards a game. Like, come on.
I know a team that's got a Canadian running back with no Canadian backup where he would fit in.
Can they afford him?
Doubtful.
I don't know if they can afford anyone, judging by the cuts they made.
They got 30 coaches to pay.
Like, I mean, the kid's a rookie, but they got to pay him something. And
yeah.
Judging by the cuts that Saskatchewan made, I have no idea.
But if they could afford him, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it totally does. I think they should probably call him sooner rather than later. We go to Hamilton here. Quarterback Bryant Moniz gets let go. Wide receiver kick returner Willie Quinn III as well. I know some Tiger Cat fans were excited from what they have seen from him. And I'd almost consider what happened to Abdul Kanay getting cut. He got traded to Toronto for an 8th-round pick. He was an all-star in 2016 with Ottawa, and maybe not much of a Jerry Glanville guy, since I guess Glanville wants to play more of a man-to-man system, and Kanay is just falling because of that, I'm thinking.
You get traded for an 8th-round pick, it kind of feels like a slap in the face, I imagine.
Yeah.
At the same time, he's still got a job.
It seems so different in the West versus the East, because a lot of times West GMs and coaches want to trade a player outside of the division, but it seems like they don't care in the East.
Well, no, because all the teams out there suck anyway. Maybe not suck, but it is the weaker of the two. I don't think that there's even a debate there.
There's no arguing that. It's fact, yeah.
But even when West GMs trade them to players to the East, they end up back in the West anyway an hour later. So it's really just doing the motions, I guess.
No, I guess let's preview the West Division. We did this with the East last episode here. We'll reveal our standings after we go through all the teams. So let's go from the West Coast to the Prairies. We start with the BC Lions. Leaving the team this offseason, Alex Bazzi, defensive lineman, defensive backs, Ronnie Yell, Luchez Purifoy, and Chandler Fenner, and a couple defensive linemen as well, Mikhail Brooks and Craig Rowe, joining the team. Now, we knew that the weaknesses that Ed Hervey identified coming in, probably secondary and the trenches, whether it's defensive line or offensive line. So a lot of changes were made. Odell Willis comes over from Edmonton, I guess via Ottawa. Christopher Greaves from Montreal. Jeremy Lewis from Montreal. Both of those guys offensive linemen. Dominic Termanson from Montreal. Keelan Johnson from Ottawa. Those guys DBs. We got quarterback Cody Fajardo. Linebacker Otha Foster from Saskatchewan. Joel Figueroa, O-lineman from Edmonton. We've got DB Gary Peters from Edmonton. We've got DB Marcel Young from Edmonton, which I think Eskimo fans call that one addition by subtraction. one. We got wide receiver Corey Watson from Edmonton, Trayvon Van, running back Devon Coleman, D lineman from Hamilton, and also A.J. Jefferson, who has had a few good seasons in this league, especially with the Argonauts. I think he has changed his name, though, to A.J. Orange, though. I heard a clip, the rest of his family is named that, so he just changed his name to A.J. Orange. So Ed Hervey wasted no time putting his mark on this team and making changes where they thought they needed to make changes. And no real surprising cuts on Sunday either. Veteran defensive back Koshi Mwamba gets let go. Brazilian Ty, what do you have as a fantasy outlook for the BC Lions?
Well, if Jonathan Jennings is healthy, and it looks kind of like he should be, he's averaged...
Did you watch Friday's game?
I recorded it and watched it this morning.
I thought that he threw some beautiful balls. It was a little bit of a slow start, but I don't think he was right last year, and I think he's admitted that. His shoulder must have been bugging him.
Oh, absolutely.
He's got a cannon on him.
Yeah. Oh, he's got one. He throws, and Cuthbert said it like that, or it might have been Suter, but the seam route that he throws is one of the best throws in the game. Like it's ridiculous how nice it is. But over the last 3 years, he's averaged 15.4 points a game. It actually kills the Riders, even though he threw 4 picks last year. 20.7 in the last 6 he's played against them. He's got Arsenault and Burnham, and a solid running game with Jeremiah Johnson. And now they've got the added insurance of Rutley and Van. Those guys I don't know how the backfield's really going to sort itself out. But Johnson averages 15.21 points a game, which is third in the league over the last 2 years. They got Chris Rainey at 13.37. The majority of his points come on special teams. And Trayvon Van, like I was saying earlier, he's only played 15 games in the last 2 years, averages 11.5. And then the receivers that he's got to throw the ball to, two of the best guys in the league. Arsenault at 16.52. He's got 19 touchdowns in the last 2 years. And Burnham, who's played 34 games in the last 2 years, averaging just under 14.5 with 10 TVs. And Burnham makes catches that nobody thinks that he'll make, and he has no business doing it.
I maintain that catch he made last year was the catch of the year, where he was getting interfered with, and he made the one arm grab as he was falling to the turf. I know the Deron Carter catch is the one everyone remembers because it's pretty, but
the Burnham one was better.
The catch was something else.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Now, I kind of glossed over their preseason game. They beat Winnipeg 34-21. Jennings 17 of 24 for 182 yards and a touchdown. Odell Willis was absolutely bringing it. And Chris Rainey had 2 massive returns called back due to flags. I do right here. Brandon Banks exploded onto the scene when Jeff Reinbold was the special teams coordinator in Hamilton. Could Rainey get any better in BC? It might be tough to get better.
Yeah, he's already, between him, Finch, and Jackson, those are 3 of the best returners in the league. I don't know how Chris Rainey could get better. He gives them a chance. Every time you kick the ball to him, it's a chance. They've got a chance to return it. And now with Reinbold there, I don't know if Rainey will get better, but I think the special teams as a whole will get better.
Yeah, they probably will have a better special teams. And if this team can, limit the flags, I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect. I think a lot of people have them written off. It is Wally Buono's last season.
And they rebuilt the O-line, which they needed to do, and Hervey did exactly that.
In one off season. So that is pretty impressive. Let's go on to Calgary, where, you know what? The departures here is a mile long. This includes some cuts, but they lose Anthony Parker, Canadian receiver. He's been there for 7 years now. They lose a lot of defensive backs, and what's incredible here is if you look over their roster now, they still have a ton of talent in that secondary. So Josh Bell, Tommy Campbell, and Joe Burnett are all gone. We don't have fullback Rob Cote. Markway McDaniel is gone. Charleston Hughes, Jerome Messam, Michael Clausen, Rory Colhert signed in Edmonton, ended up retiring. Dan Federkyle, Roy Finch is gone, and backup quarterback Canadian Andrew Buckley is gone as well. Joining the team, Eric Rogers, that is official. Adam Berger, S.A. Marabre, defensive lineman from Saskatchewan. Derek Dennis, O-lineman from Saskatchewan, who went there last year and couldn't get it done, and he was the most outstanding offensive lineman the year before. And this question was posed to us on Twitter: how big of the problem is Saskatchewan's coaching?
I think people know how I feel about Chris Jones.
But, I mean, how much does he have to do with the O-line? They have struggled with O-line for developing their own guys.
Yeah. Other than, who's the guy I'm thinking of? We met his grandparents.
Heenan.
Yeah, other than Heenan, they haven't developed any of their own.
Dan Clark is their own, I believe, and Bladek as well, but he's probably going to be a backup. Even Labatt was taken from Winnipeg. So they've had trouble developing their own offensive line, and they did have a big vaunted offensive line in 2013, the years when they were winning, but most of those were free agent signings.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're not going to get Canadians that you develop, you can't get them for cheap. So it's kind of tough to build the rest.
They also bring in defensive back Emmanuel Davis from Hamilton. He's had some good years there. Troy Studemeyer is coming as well. Now, a little bit more on the Anthony Parker release. They have some depth at Canadian receiver. Brissanen is there. Julon Lynch, Richard Sindani, and Lamar Durant are all there. So they're younger. They're probably cheaper than Anthony Parker. Defensive lineman Randy Colling was released as well. He was a first-round draft choice from last year. I don't know what it is about first-round picks from 2017, but things aren't looking good. Faith McCackety, the number 1 overall pick, was let go. Randy Colling has now been let go. So what's going on with that first round of 2017?
That is a great question. Yeah, I just don't know. Like, Hamilton can't sign their first overall pick from this year.
Yeah.
So are we going to be going down this road again come training camp next year? Like,
maybe. The guy missed all of camp.
Yeah. The draft is a crapshoot. It is in every league. You have your top guys, and those are guys that are going to fit in right away. The CFL draft's a little different because you can only draft Canadians, and there's a lot of teams only have certain positions where they want to play Canadians unless a guy's an absolute standout. And if there's competition there, well, if you're not pulling your weight and you're not getting it done, see you later. They'll cut you and they'll figure it out and do it all again next year.
Just about every international receiver they brought into camp was let go, but Eric Rogers comes in, and they haven't put him on the 6-game injured list. So we'll see how fast Rogers gets into the offense. But when you got Mark and Michelle, Kamar Jordan, Tavares Daniels, and Eric Rogers, they have a pretty good international crop of receivers, I'm going to say.
Like, how does Bo Levi choose who he throws to? Like, it seems to be somebody new every week.
Yeah, they've always spread the ball around, and that's the scary thing about the offense.
Yeah, it's going to be another year where they're gonna be able to run over some teams, and it's not going to take very long.
How are they looking as far as fantasy goes?
Well, Bo Levi Mitchell, he has the best record as a starter in the CFL right now, but he's actually only the 5th best for fantasy points at 16.83. But he's second behind Mike Riley in total points. So 16.83, it's not a lot from your quarterback, but when you look at the averages that a lot of guys are getting, he's middle of the pack. So you don't want to pay a whole crap load if you don't have to. With receivers, I don't even know where to start. You got right. It seems that he's got a new favorite every week: 100 yards, touchdown, and around 8 catches. Like, it's just somebody new. Kamar Jordan, 16.12 a game. He's 8th overall in the league in the last 2 years. Davaris Daniels at 15 with 14.34. Marco Michel, just 10.8 last year, but it was his rookie year. I think he's going to get a lot more opportunity. And Eric Rodgers, that's going to be a huge add for this receiving core that's already so high-powered. Jerome Messam leaving kind of leaves a hole, but we saw last year when he was hurt that Terry Williams can carry the load. 5 games he got into last year, he averaged 12.6. That also included that 36-point night against Montreal.
Terry Williams ran so hard last year that he puked on the sideline. Hopefully this training camp gets him used to the CFL game.
Hopefully.
These look like a Brazilian Ty on a Sunday morning.
Or Saturday night. Hey, I ate 10 pizza pops yesterday. You want to talk about wanting to puke?
10 pizza pops. So tell me about this bet here. Didn't somebody challenge you to eat 20? Because only halfway there is not good.
Well, we have a group chat with our slow pitch team, and I think it started out as pizza pockets, and somebody said they could eat 20. And I'm like, well, I could eat 20 pizza pops. And yeah, so it kind of went from there. And then Friday night, my AC is actually broken in my condo right now, so I went over to a buddy's place, and we were talking, and he's like, okay, well, yeah, do it tomorrow. So on the way home, I stopped at 7-Eleven and bought 6 boxes of pizza pops, and I was so hungover, though, when I woke up, I couldn't eat right away, so I had to wait, and I didn't start till 2 o'clock, so from 2 to about 8:30, I ate 10 pizza pops, and it hurt.
So do you do them in the oven or the microwave?
Microwave, man. 2 minutes, done deal.
Yeah.
I don't even flip them.
Yeah, who wastes time with the flip? But the oven will change your life. Have you ever done them in there?
Yeah, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah, it stays too hot, too much time. I get what you're saying.
Like my condo right now is at 25 degrees. I don't want to turn the oven on.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I closed all the windows because it's too windy. You wouldn't be able to hear me.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, let's blow through this thing then. We go up on... I should mention one thing about CFL Fantasy this year. It looks like they're making it PPR as well.
Yes, sir. I put that into like the last couple of years there, that all the stuff that we have is with catches included.
That.
Yes, it is with catches included.
You are the man. I knew I hired you for some reason.
Hired means I get paid.
We go up on the QE2 to Edmonton, and leaving Edmonton, the list is a mile long. I guess let's just go through the notable names here. Well, they pretty much all are.
Well, we recognize all of these names because we're at every game.
Yeah. They lose 3 offensive linemen, Joel Figueroa, Danny Grew, and Simeon Rotier. On the defensive side, they lose Odell Willis, Kenny Ladler, Phillip Hunt, Euclid Cummings. We know what happened there with the charges and going to BC and the contract getting voided. John Chick ends up retiring. They lose Marcel Young. I already said probably addition by subtraction there. Swayze Waters, they only needed him last year because of Sean White and his injury. John White gets let go. He did resign and then ended up getting let go there. I got to assume hopefully he has some gas in the tank. He was a great running back. Maybe he does end up somewhere still once the injuries start to come in. But in the receiving core, they lose Adarius Bowman, Brandon Zylstra, and Corey Watson. I should mention Gary Peters, DB, as well. So just between Bowman and Zylstra, that's a lot of yards. That's a lot of touchdowns over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, that's a huge loss. But then you look at the depth they have at receiver, and I don't think they're going to miss a beat. I really don't.
And what happened with the Eskimos last year was fascinating. The amount of injuries that team sustained, it was almost like an extended preseason in many ways. Mm-hmm. And they made it all the way to the West Final, and they were a dumb decision from their coach from maybe going to the Grey Cup. They still had a lot to do before getting to the Grey Cup, but they were able to see what they had with a lot of these guys that were on the practice roster. So they knew that, yeah, we've got a lot of depth at receiver. Duke Williams basically played all year and he probably wouldn't have played much at all if it weren't for injuries. The same goes for Bryant Mitchell, who's going to be seeing a lot more time this year. So almost all those injuries were able to help the team see what they have, and they didn't have to bring that many pieces in, and that's the crazy part about this team. So they bring in Jerron Kreiner from Ottawa, and on defensive line they bring in Alex Bazzi from BC, and there weren't really any crazy cuts as well on Sunday. They let go Brandon Thompson, who was actually a big part of that secondary late last season. After all the injuries, they bring him in, and I thought he looked well, and he kind of changed the course after Edmonton went on that big, massive losing streak. But on the surface, it looks like they lost a lot of guys, but they're going to be A-okay.
About the Brandon Thompson release, Dave Campbell for 630 Ched tweeted out earlier today, Brock Sunderland said the release was completely related to his Achilles injury. He's going to be out for longer than the team expected, so the team decided to move on.
So he is hurt, and that's the reason that Thompson has been let go. How are they looking as far as fantasy goes?
Well, you have, hands down, far and away, bar none, the elite fantasy quarterback. Mike Riley is the best fantasy quarterback in the CFL. There's no argument against it. He averages 22.96 points a game. This is since 2015. He has a 5.36 point lead over second place in that point per game, and that's Ricky Ray. If you got the room to spend $14,000, if you got the room to spend $14,000, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, he's expensive. So that 5.36 is per game. So that's over 100 points throughout the year, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little crazy how much he actually puts up. Gable, nobody really knew what he was. He got really hurt by his usage in Hamilton. He got traded to Hamilton. 4 games that he had with the S last year, he averaged 18.4 points. His career average is just at 13.3. So that's got to come up because the way he's going to get used in Edmonton, he's going to be running the ball and he's going to be part of the offense more. As for receivers, Riley puts up the numbers he does because he has the receivers to do it. Darrell Walker is the best receiver in the CFL with 18.412 points a game. Bryant Mitchell only got into 8 games last year, but he was able to average 14.39. Hazelton at 12.25 and Duke Williams at 11.19. Pretty respectable if you can get him for cheap. Bowman and Zylstra are gone, so Duke Williams is going to get a lot more opportunity this year. And from the depth charts I've seen, it kind of looks like Hazelton's going to be moving inside to slot back. He could be seeing a lot more targets that he's seen over the past couple of years. And good for him because he had a big season in Toronto when they brought in the big 3, Torrey Gurley, Vidal Hazelton, and Kevin Elliott, and he's been real patient with his team in Edmonton, and he had a 108-yard touchdown last year. We could be seeing more of that.
Oh, absolutely. Slot back is a great spot to get catches. It's the closest guy to the quarterback, so it's an easier throw. Sure, there's a little more traffic, but I just think with Zylstra and Bowman gone, it's going to be, you still have Walker, but everybody else is going to kind of be, just offense by committee. It's going to kind of be the Calgary model a little bit, and I think everybody's going to get their fair share of touches.
We move on to the Queen City. A lot of changes in Regina, as seems to be the norm with Chris Jones and the era there right now. So this includes the cuts that came out on Saturday. Losing receivers, Bakari Grant, Rob Bagg, Chad Owens, Nick Dembski. All of them are gone. Travis Bond, offensive lineman, is gone. Linebackers, Otha Foster, Jeff Knox, Enoch Mwamba. Defensive back, Casey Rogers. S.A. Marabre goes to Calgary. A.C. Leonard goes to Ottawa, and Greg Morris goes to Toronto. As additions go, they're pretty quality themselves. Zach Evans, Charleston Hughes on the defensive line, Jerome Messam, running back, Sam Hurl, linebacker, Jake Hardy, Canadian receiver from Ottawa, and 2 former NFL running backs, Zach Stacy and Trey Mason. Stacy has been placed on the practice roster, and it kind of seems like Trey Mason has made the team. As we head into the season, it looks like Tyler Krapinya's done for the entire year. Their rookie, Tyler Lothar, looked good in preseason. I think he went 5 for 5. Now, there's a lot of questions
as
to what happened with this team. The cuts that happen, which is the one that surprised you the most?
Wow, that's a great question. I think Travis Bond. At the same time, it's a position that's usually Canadian, so you'd have to really outperform to get that spot. And I thought
that's exactly it.
I thought Rob Bagg would be a rider until he decided he wasn't a rider anymore, but I guess I was wrong.
And you know what? Yeah, exactly. With the Travis Bond thing, if you're going to be an import guard, you better be
the best guard in the league.
Yeah, exactly. In the entire league. And you know what? He changed the Bombers once they were able to put him in a couple years ago, and the Bombers have had they had a great run once they put Bond in there. But
let's not sleep on Bakari Grant either getting released.
I've heard that Bond is not. He was good at camp, but you know he wasn't getting paid crazy much, and that's kind of the reason it's surprised me. As far as Owens, Bagg, and Grant go, they're all on the wrong side of 30, and if you get rookies coming into camp outperforming you, Jones has shown time and time again you're not going to make the team anymore.
Yeah, I understand that, but look at Grant's last 4 years and tell me that he couldn't get a spot on this team. 605 in 2014, 492 yards in 2015, 625 in 2016, over 1,000 yards last year, and he gets cut.
So you're saying one good year?
I would take a chance and see if he can do it again. Because just the receiving core, I don't know what happened.
You know, I'm not saying he's a bad receiver, but he's 6'4". He's a big guy. He is only 30. He turns 31 in a couple weeks here. If these guys come into camp, Jordan Williams-Lambert and Shaq Evans, and by all reports say these guys have looked awesome, you have to make room for them. And I have no problem with these cuts here, Bond, Owens, Bagg, and Grant. It makes the roster a lot younger.
Oh, for sure. And which in turn leads to it being cheaper.
Yeah, and that's why I'm okay. I also wonder with Travis Bond here, if they know something about Dakota Shepley, are they going to be seeing him sooner rather than later? Because offensive line depth is a big problem in Saskatchewan.
Not only offensive line, just Canadian depth in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And Canadian is a big problem. So Darius Bladdock gets onto the roster last year and has looked okay. He did not look good in the first preseason game. Is he going to be backing up another American guard? Maybe Jarvis Harrison starts. Maybe they rotate Canadian and international guard there. I don't really... they don't have much flexibility anymore.
They have none, it seems. I was looking at the depth chart. I think it was Jamie Nye tweeted out a picture of it, or what he thought it was going to be, and it doesn't, there's no Canadian depth on this team. If Messam goes down, God forbid, they're going to have to get creative in a hurry to figure it out. And I don't know. Without Canadian depth, it's really hard to win, and they just don't have it right now. They haven't had it for a while, as evidence when they got fined for not having the proper ratio. So I have no idea what's going to happen.
The Canadian receivers, they have Josh Stanford, Devin Bailey, and Jake Hardy once Hardy is healthy here. BJ Daniels, Mitch Picton, and David Cobb also all let go. Only the one Canadian there. BJ Daniels, the quarterback, maybe he reunites with Sherman in Montreal. I know he coached Daniels once upon a time, and David Cobb, a former NFL running back. And I think here, with Bakari Grant being let go, that solidifies it that Duron Carter, the defensive back, is no longer a thing.
I hope so.
Because yes, Grant is still valuable there if Carter's playing a lot of defense.
Mm-hmm.
If he's playing no defense, then you have to get him on offense and have him on offense every single play. Apparently, Carter looked just horrible as defensive back Friday night against Calgary. So if Carter was only a DB, he'd probably be cut. Good thing he can play receiver, and he is maybe the most athletic and best receiver in the league as long as they can keep him going. I know that it's almost like a smart kid in a grade 3 math class. Like, this is too easy. I'm not going to be paying attention anymore.
And then you get to grade 7 and your math mark takes a dive.
And maybe that's what they do with Duran. Man, receiving's too easy. Okay, we'll let you return kicks. Okay, we'll let you play defense. But they've got a couple newcomers in the secondary that they really like, so they don't have to play Duran there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Marshall, they've brought him in. He's 6'1" as a DB. I think they really like that. He's had a great camp, and yes, Duran Carter on that side of the ball has to be over now. None of that anymore. I thought it was stupid from the start, and let's hope it's done for good until an emergency happens.
Yeah, and like, in an emergency situation, I get it, but there's no way he should be starting there.
No, not anymore.
No.
That has to be done now. Now,
Yeah.
What do they look like for fantasy here? I see a lot of question marks.
Yeah, a little bit, eh?
Yeah.
Colaros, third in points per game with 1707. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He's going to have Messam. If Messam can be a viable threat out of the backfield, it'll help the pass game. Speaking of Messam, comes back from Calgary. He only averaged 12.2 points a game last year, which is actually down from the 16.46 he had in 2016. So we've got to wait and see what Messam we're going to get and what price point he's going to be at. And then, Bakari Grant gone, Rob Begg gone, Chad Owens gone. So got Roosevelt, Carter if he's not playing halfback, Bailey and Hawley. Roosevelt is third at 17.04 points a game. Carter is a little further down the list. He's even behind Chad Owens, actually, in 18th with 13.64 points a game.
You got to think Caleb Hawley will come in as a discount, and he'll be seeing a lot more action this year. And that's a guy that's been on the roster for a few years and has had some flashes and some big games. Now he gets to play more and is younger than the departing receivers in Rider Nation.
Yeah. His numbers aren't, they're not outstanding. He averages 10.38 or 3.9 a game in 24 games in the last 3 years. So, he doesn't get a ton of playing time. He's kind of stuck on the depth chart, but now with all the cuts, he's going to get a good look, I think.
I'm very interested to see, like we said, how they manage the ratio here. Thigpen is suspended for the first 2 games of the season, so they probably use Messam a lot in the first couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Once Thigpen comes back, I'm interested to see what they do and how they manage everything there. Now, let's go to Winnipeg here. Now, we don't know who their starting quarterback is. It's kind of... do you want the young guy with a lot of upside, or do you just want the journeyman to go in there and
I want the journeyman.
Manage things?
I want the journeyman.
Yes. So Alex Ross, he goes 10 for 13 for 78 yards. Okay. I think he'll be the starter heading into Thursday's game against Edmonton, but they have to be happy about the Matt Nichols news. A lot of times when we see the non-contact injuries, it is bad. You are out for the season, and they're only expecting him maybe to be out for a month, 4 to 6 weeks. So that's not the worst news that Winnipeg could have gotten regarding Matt Nichols.
No, it's if you're going to look for positives, that's a big plus for sure. If you lose your starting quarterback before he even takes a snap and he's out for the season, you're going to have a really rough year. this 4 to 6. We'll see. It might be longer. Never know. But I think 4 is pretty optimistic at this point.
So leaving Winnipeg is offensive lineman Travis Bond, who actually is nowhere right now. A Canadian receiver, Julian Fioli-Godino, off to Ottawa. We've got Sam Hurl and Kyle Knox, both linebackers, Dan Lefevre and Dominic Davis, and Canadian defensive lineman Jamal Westerman, who is a game changer. But they add Chandler Fenner, defensive back from BC, Nick Dembski from Saskatchewan, Craig Rowe, D lineman from BC, Darian Durant.
You could have put him on both lists.
Yeah, put him on both. Anthony Gator, but they also add Darius Bowman, Keenan LaFrance, Johnny Augustine, and linebacker Adam Bighill. So they've had some nice additions in Winnipeg as well. It's funny, Johnny Augustine, he looked good in the preseason game as well. And look at the Canadian running backs they have in Winnipeg. Harris, Augustine, LaFrance. It's a good situation they have.
Yeah, that must be nice.
Yeah. And you know what? Right now, I think Winnipeg's draft is looking really good from this past spring. Daniel Peterman looked awesome in the preseason game, and Rashad Simonize is been doing well at camp as well. As far as cuts go, yeah, we did say number 1 overall pick from last year, Faith Kakady, is gone. A former NFL wide receiver, had a big touchdown. Reuben Randall gets let go, and so did Miles White. He is the brother to Mitchell White. Oh, did you see his tweet?
I definitely did see that. Yep, that's super classy.
His brother gets let go by the Bombers, and he basically tweets, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and their personnel people suck.
Yep.
I don't know if that is good to burn bridges in a 9-team league, but that's what he decided to do. I have to think Faith Kakady will end up somewhere. Of course, he's going to have a way cheaper deal if he still wants to play football. But if there's somebody playing a Canadian defensive tackle, yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll back up somewhere.
Saskatchewan has 2 of them.
Can he play running back? Can he lose about 75 pounds?
No, he could be like the fridge, man.
Wait, can he play O-line?
Hey, now we're talking.
What's Winnipeg looking like as far as fantasy goes? Because right now, I think there's only one guy you can choose, and that's Andrew Harris.
Well, that depends. Early in the season, yes. You don't know what you're going to get out of the quarterback position for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Could be a real crapshoot. Matt Nichols, however, when he does come back, he ranks 8th at 13.35 points a game. So all this talk about him being elite can be over. And he's got a new target with Darius Bowman. But like you said, Andrew Harris averages 18.01 points a game. Against Edmonton, he averages 23.43.
Wow.
They play Edmonton 3 times this year. Make room on your roster. It's a no-brainer.
I don't know why. He steps up against the Eskimos, though.
And then they got Darvin Adams, who's 4th at 16.8, and Bowman is 6th with 16.55 points a game. And Dressler is still respectable with 13.74. So they've got the receivers. The quarterback situation early on in the year could hamper the score for those guys a little bit until Matt Nichols is healthy and comes back.
Now, as far as the West goes, how do you have the standings shaking out?
Are we going top to bottom then? Or do you want to start in 5th?
Let's go top to bottom.
Okay, I know I said I thought Calgary was going to take a step back. I don't think that anymore. I think Calgary wins the West, or finishes first. Then Edmonton, BC, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg. I got to put them in 5th because they could end up digging themselves such a hole without Matt Nichols, and they won't be able to get out of it. So just with the injuries right now, I'm putting them 5th. It's a little bit of a hot take, but I'll take all the crap and abuse that I'll get on Twitter for this tomorrow and just block everybody.
Well, the West is an absolute mess. So I think the difference between first and fifth, maybe, the difference between third and fifth is not much.
It's 2 games.
It's going to be, it's going to be really close. I believe Edmonton is going to win the West. I think that they're going to be on a mission. Mike Riley's going to be on a mission to get into that game at Commonwealth Stadium in November. And Edmonton's actually a good team. It's kind of funny. In the past, the home team never had a shot at playing the Grey Cup at home, but now it seems teams really do all they can. And I believe Mike Riley is going to do all he can to get to that game. Now, 2-3 weeks ago, I thought I saw Saskatchewan being second in the West and having a home playoff game. I don't think there's going to be a home playoff game anymore. I'm going to say Calgary still gets a home playoff game, finishes second. BC is going to be really scrappy. So my third, fourth, and fifth, I'm just going to close my eyes and pick something here, but I could see BC finishing third, Winnipeg fourth, and Saskatchewan fifth.
Yeah, I got no problem with that.
If Saskatchewan has any amount of injuries to start this season,
especially to Canadians,
I think they're in deep trouble. I do think, though, that the defense will be able to steal games here, and I think anything could happen to flip this West entirely upside down. It is the wild, wild West more than it has ever been. There are so many changes here. And that being said, as far as BC goes, I think they might be the most unpredictable team.
Oh, they have so many new faces. We don't know what they're going to do yet. We don't know what they're going to be.
Yeah. With the amount of changes they had, they could be the best or they could be the worst in the West. So, yeah, I'll put them somewhere in the middle. Edmonton, Calgary, BC, Winnipeg, and then Saskatchewan. And then the Saskatchewan fans will jump all over me. But look at my closet, man. There's a lot of green and white.
Hey, I put them in fourth, getting the crossover, and I don't have a lot of faith in it, but I don't know what Winnipeg is going to do to start the year. So I didn't really have much of a choice.
It is so hard to not overreact to the preseason. And maybe that's exactly what I've done.
Quite possibly, yes.
That's possibly what I've done, but these predictions are all just fun anyway, and we'll be completely wrong. So we'll look at them in 6 months and see what happens. We'll be back on Thursday to preview this week's games. We've got real football to talk about. The Thursday night opener is going to be Winnipeg and Edmonton. Saskatchewan opens up their season on Friday, but yeah, real football coming up this weekend. 2 and Out, we're looking to get on Spotify and iHeartRadio in the next few weeks, so look for us on there. In the meantime, subscribe wherever podcasts are found other than those places, basically. Hit us up on iTunes. Leave us a subscription. We got a couple new reviews in the last month or so here. Garrett leaves a review saying, "Hey, I love this podcast. I've been listening to it for a while. Pretty hilarious. Great info about the entire league. Keep up the great work." So thank you, Garrett. And Barbarian Burke leaves a review last week. Currah and Ty have an efficient structure to their show, providing a good breakdown of games, teams, topics to provide some thoughts for the listener to take or leave. Their nonsense is also on point and entertaining. So look at that, Ty. Was that you?
Stop it. Go on.
So thanks for the review. They help others find great CFL podcasts, and there's a lot of good ones, no matter who you cheer for in the Canadian Football Podcast Network. I'm excited to get 2018 underway. Brazilian Ty, we'll talk to you in a couple days, buddy.
Sounds good, man.
We'll talk to you soon. It's the 2 and Out CFL Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.